Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is dream. Let's take a look at some of the definitions for this verb. The first way the verb dream is used is to mean to experience a series of thoughts, images, or emotions during sleep. This is probably the most common usage for this verb, dream. A second way we use dream, though, is a little bit different in that it's not while we're asleep, but while we are awake. And so that definition is to indulge in daydreams about something greatly desired. A third way to use this verb dream is to mean to consider a possibility. With this usage, you might think about little children dreaming about what they will be when they grow up. Dream is kind of unique in that it has both a regular and irregular form in our past tense and past participle. But before we look at that, to make the progressive form, all you need to do is add ing to make dreaming. The past tense form could be made by adding ed and pronouncing that dreamed. So our verb ends with a voiced sound, so the ed is making a d sound. Say it once again, dreamed. But you might hear people use the irregular form, dreamt. Both of these are acceptable. I think it's more common to hear dreamed in the United States and dreamt in the United Kingdom or in England. There are some small differences where you might notice a native English speaker in the United States choosing dreamed versus dreamt, and I'll show you an example of that later. So our past tense form and participle forms, again, can go either way, dreamed or dreamt. Let's take a look now at some phrasal verbs that use dream. The first one you might hear is to dream away, and it means to spend time thinking, but not really doing anything. So just allowing our thoughts to go, but not coming up with a plan of action about how we're going to accomplish what it is we're thinking about. So here's an example sentence. She just sits at home and dreams her life away. She's not doing anything to accomplish those dreams. Another phrasal verb you might hear is to dream of. And it means to contemplate or think about the possibility of doing something. So again, that connects very closely to that third definition of the verb dream. Here's an example of that. I wouldn't dream of telling her the news. So here someone is not thinking about the possibility or thinks that it's not going to go well, so I'm not going to do it. Another phrasal verb you might hear is dream on. I'm going to point out this is slang, and we want to be careful how we use it and whom we're speaking to when we use it. So when we use this, and it's most commonly used in the imperative or command form, you are saying some idea is either not practical or it is not likely to happen. So let me give an example. You're going to play in the World Cup? Dream on, right? So it's usually said kind of sarcastically. So in this example sentence, I'm saying it is not possible that maybe the person I'm talking to is ever going to play in the World Cup. Okay? The last phrasal verb we'll take a look at is dream up, and it means to invent or create something. Here's an example of that. They dreamed up a scheme to make money. So here they're creating some sort of plan. It might not be the best plan. In this usage, I would say, has kind of a negative connotation to it. Let's continue practicing using our verb dream in a few different verb tenses. Today we'll practice the simple past, simple present, and the present perfect progressive. Let's start with simple past tense. Now remember, we have two forms of the past tense. So when we're making an affirmative sentence in the simple past tense, whatever our subject is, we can then use dreamed or dreamt. And again, as I said earlier, you might hear speakers in the UK tend to use dreamt more, and I think speakers in the United States tend to use dreamed more. But there is one small difference, and I'm going to give you two affirmative examples to show you that difference. Here's the first affirmative example. I dreamt of becoming a teacher when I was little. Okay? So here, this is the meaning of kind of aspiring, thinking about possibilities. So you might, particularly with the past tense, see people use the irregular past tense to think about that, or to use this irregular past tense when they're talking about possibilities. Here's the second affirmative simple past tense. I dreamed about cooking a large meal last night. So there, you're likely to see the regular past tense form of the verb when people are talking about their thoughts, their feelings they had while they were sleeping. But again, it wouldn't be a huge mistake and people would understand you if you switched those forms in my two examples. If I want to make a negative sentence in the simple past tense, I'm going to use did not and then the base verb. Here's an example of that. Many people didn't dream that 2020 would be full of so many challenges. I think that's something I've heard quite often from different people. Finally, if I want to make a yes or no question in the simple past tense, I'm going to start with did, then I'll have my subject, and then the base verb. Did you dream last night? If I want to make sentences in the simple present, I'm going to use my base verb, just dream, when my subject is I, you, we, or they. If my subject is he, she, or it, I need to add an S to the end of the verb. So remember, our simple present is talking about people's habits or routines, factual statements as well. So let's take a look at an affirmative example. He dreams of playing at Wimbledon. Okay? A very famous tennis tournament, in case you're not a tennis fan and don't recognize that word. So again, he's thinking of the possibility. What would it be like if I could play so well to qualify for that tournament? If I want to make a negative sentence in the simple present, I'm going to use do not and the base verb when my subject is I, you, we, or they, or does not and the base verb when my subject is he, she, or it. Here's an example. I don't dream about living abroad any longer. Okay, so someone's describing a fact at the present. This is not a dream to live in a different country. If I want to make a yes or no question in the simple present, I'm going to start with do or does, depending on my subject, which comes next, and then I'll have the base verb. Do you dream about the future? Okay. Next, let's take a look at present perfect progressive. To make this verb tense, we're going to be using have or has, depending on our subject, then the participle been, and then the ing form of the verb. And we're using this to describe an action that started in the past and it continues into the present. Let's look at an affirmative example. Many people have been dreaming about going back to their normal routines and lives. Again, that's something I hear a number of friends and sometimes students talking about. When are things going to get back to normal? Okay. If I want to make a negative sentence in the present perfect progressive, I'm going to insert not after have or has. You might hear native speakers use the contractions haven't or hasn't. Here's another example. She hasn't been dreaming up any travel plans since the pandemic started. Finally, if I want to make a yes or no question in the present perfect progressive, I will start with have or has, then I'll have my subject, then been, and then the ing form of the verb. Have you been dreaming about graduation day? Next, let's take a look at some words that are related to our verb dream. And the first word we're going to look at is just the noun form of this word. Same spelling, same pronunciation. And just like our verb, it can also have a few different meanings. The first way we can use the noun dream is to mean a series of thoughts or images that occur in a person's mind during sleep. You can see this connects back very closely to the first definition of the verb dream that we looked at. So these images and ideas that occur in our mind while we're asleep. So let's take a look at a noun form that has this particular meaning. He has a recurring dream about falling from a great height. So what this is saying is many times while this person is sleeping, they have this image, picture in their mind that they fall. So recurring means just happening again and again. A second way we can talk about the noun dream is to mean a cherish, so something that's really important to us, aspiration, an ambition or goal, an idea. Right? And that's also a really common usage for this noun. Her childhood dreams came true. So that's another way to think of it. Her childhood goals, her childhood ideas of perhaps it's where she would live or what kind of work she would do or maybe what she would study in school. Whatever it was, it's now happened. Another related word that you might hear is dreamer. It's a noun, and it can also have a couple different meanings. The first is just a person who dreams or is dreaming. Here's an example of this usage, and I've changed it and used the compound noun, daydreamer here. That student is a daydreamer, right? So this is probably describing someone who's not necessarily listening to a lecture or participating in an activity with his or her classmates, but instead is thinking about something that's going to happen later or in the future. Okay? A second meaning for dreamer has been used a great deal in the last 10 or so years. And it's connected to some legislation here in the United States. So when you hear dreamer now, there's a good chance that someone is talking about another person who's lived in the United States without official authorization. So without a green card, for example. And they've done that since they came to the country as a child, so under the age of 18. We had some legislation that was trying to create a legal status for these individuals. So technically, under U.S. law, they are not citizens, but they are very important members of our community, very valued. And many times the United States is the only place they have known as their home. So here's an example of dreamers with this definition. It's also, I should point out, connected to DACA, Deferred Action on Childhood Arrivals. That's the legislation I mentioned. So dreamers are worried about the future of DACA. So this program was enacted many years ago as leadership in Congress and the presidential political party many times influences the direction of this program. The last word I'm going to leave you with today is an adjective. It's dreamy. And it means having a magical or pleasantly unreal quality. Another way to think of this is dream-like. So here's an example of that usage in a sentence. Their new bedroom is dreamy. So you might imagine it, again, like something you've pictured in your head. The colors, perhaps the furniture, some quality of life is dreamlike to you when you're using that adjective. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you'll incorporate this verb into your writing or your speaking this week. You're also always welcome to practice making your own sentences in any verb tense you'd like in the comments, and I'll check those out and offer you some feedback. Have a great day.